This is The Great Outdoors with Jason White, exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, The Great Outdoors with Jason White.
Hello, friends. I'm Jason White. Welcome to The Great Outdoors. Have a really good show lined up for you. We're going to dive into some deer hunting tactics, some deer hunting stories here with my good friend Todd Bonner, and also we're going to explore some conversations over potential policy, potential legislation, and regarding deer hunting and I would say food plots, baiting, etc. But before I jump into that, I would like to give a special thanks to our sponsors, the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. You can join the MOA today. If you join today, you get the last 3 weeks of December for free, along with your 2025 membership. You can join at MarianaOutdoors.com. Again, it's MarianaOutdoors.com. If you have any questions, you can give us a call at 724-579-0924. And as always, tons of information on our website, tons of information on our YouTube channel, tons of information on our Facebook page, Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. So if you're looking for anything, have any questions, you can literally reach out to us on any of those platforms. So really happy to have anybody. And then we'll start having open houses again in January. So just stay tuned for all the above. Special thanks to Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. If you would like to book a free-ranging whitetail deer hunt, a free-ranging turkey hunt, upland bird hunts, continental pheasant hunts for like groups, parties, corporations, etc., get-togethers, gatherings, fishing trips, whether that's just a couple people or even if you want to have like an actual event for the day, please reach out to us. You can give me a call directly at 724-579-0924, or you can go on our website at 10mileco.org. Again, that's TENMILECO.org, and that stands for 10 Mile Creek Outfitters. That's the managing mothership for Wild Acres Farm and then all of our other properties that we have. Last but not least, please visit beautiful Pennsylvania. A couple updates on upcoming events for the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. This Friday at 3 p.m., it'll be trout stalking number 4 of the fall. That'll take place at 3 p.m., 1997 Morey Road, Clarksville, Pennsylvania, 15322. We'll get all of 10 Mile stalked, and then we will do Daniel's Run. So really excited about that. Really looking forward to it. That being said, looking ahead, we have a continental pheasant hunt scheduled for Saturday, January the 18th. That is at 8 a.m. Registration will be basically from 7 to 8:30, and then we'll start at 9 o'clock. It's open to the general public. It's $250 a person. Information, again, is on our Facebook page, and you can also check that out on MarianaOutdoors.com. And then looking ahead, we're going to have Saturday, the last Saturday of March, which is actually the 29th. We're going to have a gun and cash bash. It'll be at 19 North Event Venue in Washington, PA. It'll be a collaboration with the American Oil and Gas Alliance. Awesome to partner with the energy industry, and look forward to that great event. Please, again, stay tuned on our social media outlets. We'll have more information, and tickets will be available very soon. They're actually going to be hot off the press this upcoming week. And last but not least, just looking ahead, Friday, May the 2nd through Sunday, May the 4th, it'll be the second annual PA Trout Classic. Basically, we'll have 80 contestants competing in a tag trout contest. Basically, the fish in the stream are tagged, and people will be able to come follow our rules, regulations. All you got to do is collect the tags. Fish are pre-weighed, pre-measured, so we know what everything is. And then at the very end, we'll have first, second, third. Biggest fish, we'll do a tag raffle, collecting all the tags, and then we'll actually do a smallest fish. So despite biggest, smallest, etc., everybody has an opportunity. And then the last thing I wanted to just make a note of, currently, this is for Mariana Outdoorsmen Association members. We're currently running a tag program. That tag program runs basically the whole fishing season. October to the end of April. And basically, you catch the tags as a member. It's $200 entry. There's winners every month between biggest fish, smallest fish. And then again, at the very end, we'll have the 3 biggest fish and then the smallest fish. So it's a fun thing. It's a nice thing for members to get to enjoy and participate in a little bit of competition, friendly competition throughout the year, just for people to see the sizes of fish coming out of the stream. So excited about that. But that's what I have for the MOA events and general information. Please, again, just stay tuned to the MarianaOutdoors.com and Wild Acres Farm. Go to 10mileco.org. Happy to have everybody. Look forward to it. And as always, give me a call, 724-579-0924 with any questions. Todd, great to have you today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a little while, but it's always a pleasure to be on here, and I thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So it's my understanding, I saw some pictures. You had a pretty successful deer hunt out in the state of Ohio. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I was out there, southern Ohio, out in Adams County. I was out there for the second half of the rifle season and had a very successful hunt. I was able to harvest a buck and a doe while I was out there. Good mature deer, over 6-year-old mature buck. He's going to score hopefully in the 130s. Find out here once the taxidermist gets done with him. Real wide, high deer. Had some broken off tines from fighting and age, but what a monstrous buck, over 200 pounds, and he's just a really big mature deer. Something to see something like that walk through the woods and pop out. I mean, look like a small horse coming out. I mean, it's something to see that. I mean, we have big deer here, don't get me wrong, but some of those deer out there are just downright monstrous, and he was one of them, and it was something to be able to harvest an animal like that.
What type of setup was it where you were hunting?
I was in a ground blind. It was at a baited stand. They use bait out there. He didn't come into bait. He was still in full rut out there. He come in, nose curled up, come into the does that just came in, and he didn't care one bit about the bait, and he come in because those does were feeding. It was about 17 degrees, and the does wanted to eat, but he was just he was in rut, and so he come in for the does, and that's what he was in the mood for. And it was just a hunt of a lifetime. It really was. I mean, he come in picture perfect, and the 400 Legend did its job out there. They'd use the straight walls out there and AR platform, and it was a really nice hunt.
How far shot?
About 65, 70 yards.
Awesome.
Not real far, but it was really nice. That gun did a great job. First time using the 400 Legend, I'd shot the doe earlier in the day. Did a nice job on her, and then the buck, he didn't move out of his tracks. He fell over right there, and I'm very impressed with that caliber. It's a newer caliber, but
did you shoot the doe in the same spot?
Yes, yeah, and didn't mess it up one bit. I shot her about an hour and a half earlier. I wanted to actually see how the gun, performed, and she ran about 50 yards, from there, and didn't mess the hunt up one bit. The outfitter, wanted to manage some does, and he said, if you shoot one, just let it go. It's more than cold enough. We'll get it at the end of the day. He said, don't move, don't mess yourself up, and just, keep an eye. And I watched her go up, fall over, and I just left her there and didn't mess anything up at all. The other does come in about an hour and a half later and brought that buck in with them, and, the rest is history now, but lots of memories.
Well, I'm really happy for you. I know.
Well, thank you.
You put you're welcome. I know you put the time in, and I think, we've talked in the past about numerous things. I would say connected to your experience. One being, Ohio allows baiting, PA does not. That's number one. Number two, you mentioned about it being cold. In those conditions, it's not always easy to sit there through the cold. And on my last show, I was actually talking about the importance of dressing appropriately for the conditions. And
it was hard. I even had a little buddy heater in that little blind, and I tell you what, I mean, there was times I was questioning it. And we've got to this day and age where we're hooked to our cell phones. We both have one sitting in front of us right now, and it's hard for us to sit there for 12 hours and not want to play on our phones. There was zero cell phone service there. And it was watching squirrels. Well, and they went away halfway through the day. A couple woodpeckers come out. It's like you're freezing. No animals for a while. You're cold. The buddy heater wasn't quite performing up the below 20-degree mark. You're like, you question it at times. Like maybe I should go back to the lodge. But the thing that popped into my head was I only have 3 days to get a trophy buck out here. If I go back, he might come out at that point. So you got to try to brave through it. I mean, my feet were cold. My body was pretty good. I mean, I dressed very appropriate, the best I could.
What time was what time did you see the buck?
4:30.
4:30.
It was like 4:31 when I looked at my phone after I shot him because I kept the gun on him until he quit kicking. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't letting him get up and take off on me. I mean, I was pretty excited. It was an awesome hunt, and
I think it's important. I literally was talking about this last week about the importance to dress appropriately for the conditions because, to your point, even like the buddy heater, I'm sure that was a big help. I'm sure you layered up.
Lots of layers, hot hands, buddy heater. I mean, I was doing everything I could.
You don't want to be in a situation where, think about it, you could have got out of that stand at 12 o'clock and said, oh, I'm just either not coming back, or maybe you came back, and in the process of coming back, you'd have bumped those does, which in turn would have basically bumped him out of your spot. So there's like the ability to grind in rifle season is extremely important. The ability to grind and put in the time and the effort and push through, I think, is critical. To your point, but everybody has to be prepared for the conditions that you're going to be encountering. When it gets down into the teens, that is cold. That is frigid. I know we were out in it here in Southwest PA, and it was certainly quite a chilly. It was one of probably the coldest opening weeks I've ever seen
for quite a while. We've gotten kind of spoiled in the last several years. I mean, and we've been out in t-shirts in the last couple of years almost. It's like this year was an eye opener for a lot. First day here in PA, it was like,
I hate to say
cold.
it, but like the conditions yesterday and today have been more typical of a sloppy, warmer
first day
or
opening week. Yeah.
Just like today, it's it's in the 40s and kind of dreary, and those are tough conditions to hunt, especially definitely if you're using any type of a flintlock. Certainly, you're kind of you're at a humongous disadvantage if you can even keep your powder dry. But but that being said, I think it is so extremely important in rifle season to be able to be prepared, to be able to have, if it's a buddy heater, if it's hot hands, if it's layers. They sell the electric vest, the electric socks, battery pack to help keep people warm.
The industry has definitely improved from the times when I was a kid. I'm a little older than you are, so I mean, it's when I was a kid. I mean, we had those old rubber boots that had the felt packs in them. I mean, it was lucky to have those, and put some long johns on with the blue jeans, and hope and pray. But it was a lot easier when you're a kid, I think, to stay out in the cold. Now, the older you get, I swear it's harder to keep warm and stay warm. And I'm not going to say it's easy to sit out there in that, but for the love of hunting. Because it's a very expensive hobby, but you do it because you love it. There's no other reason, and the thrill of it, and the fun of it, and the respect for those animals, and to take a mature whitetail like that. I mean, I don't know if there was ever a feeling like that I've had the whole time I've been hunting, and I've had some great experiences from bird hunting, to wild boar hunting, to different things. I mean, I've had some really great experiences of different things I've done, and this one might have been the highest on my list. I mean, to see that animal come out, I know I've never seen a whitetail that big walk through the woods. I mean, it was just a monstrous animal. I mean, it looked like a
Me personally,
Like a small cow.
I was lucky last year to get a great whitetail in archery, and then this year I got an even larger whitetail in archery. I think it's one of those scenarios that for me, obviously, I guide, so it's an amazing experience to know that your work has produced something so big. Number one, number two, like with your situation, you went out with an outfitter. It just goes to show, like, clearly they're doing something right. So kudos to them. And then it goes back to the whole idea of point restrictions, and even like we have a 125 minimum at our place. That's a way above and beyond what the state has. But
Oh yeah.
but if you want bigger deer, if you do want bigger bucks, it is critical that you let the smaller ones go, because it takes
Maturity.
it takes a minimum of 3 years, 3.5 years, up to in my opinion 4 and 5 years to get that really 130 to 150 class rack that I think everybody's always so fascinated and appeal. It's such an appealing scenario. But PA, I think with the point restriction has certainly produced bigger bucks. But the other thing is that the doe management, one thing's for sure, doe management, in my opinion, I talked about this on the last episode too, about the importance of managing the deer. Every property is going to be different. Every conditions are going to be different. If you're clearly somebody that has astronomical amounts of crop damage, or you go through your wood lots and the whole, we'll just call it the woodland floor is eaten down. That is a huge concern. That's a huge problem.
Oh, it's an issue that needs corrected.
So the only way to correct it is to thin the doe herd. I always recommend to people out there, if you can, you should be able to clearly tell what a big cow doe looks like. They're usually much bigger. I try to avoid at all costs shooting smaller ones, because there's always that risk that it might be a button buck.
And I'll tell you what they do out there at the place I was. If you shoot a button buck, they have a penalty for it, and they're quite honest about it. They want doe shot, but they have a penalty of $25 an inch. So it's, I think, $32.50 is what they charge you for a button buck for a penalty, and they don't want to charge you for that, but they're trying to warn you, please shoot a mature doe. Mm-hmm. Because that button buck could be a trophy buck in 3-4 years.
Well, and I think that's
And that's they're just trying to warn you off of that.
Shooting button bucks are no bueno. Definitely not good. I think shooting does is very important. You have to manage the herd. And don't get me wrong, there are some places where the herd is not that big, and it doesn't really justify thinning it out. It just, different areas are going to be different scenarios. I know I've seen, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day where I was talking about like how it seems, I feel like, especially at the properties that I manage, I feel like the does have twins and triplets like crazy. So,
They must have good feed and good minerals, in which a lot of yours do. I know it for a fact.
So when you got one deer ending up turning into 4,
Right.
you basically,
really
they multiplied real quick. So if that happens over, say, 4 or 5 does doing that, your herd can go from 4 or 5 to 20 to 25 very quickly.
Right.
So, and all of them eat, all of them browse, all of them are going to eat whatever is easiest for them to get to. So, that being said, I mean, there's certainly lots of opportunities for people to, manage deer properly. But, this goes back to gear. If you're going to shoot does, and hypothetically, let's say you're in a condition where you're going to shoot 200, 300, 400 yards, Well, in my opinion, you need a scope that's at least a 20 power scope, because if you got a 10 power or 12 power and you're going to pull up on a doe at 300 yards out, it is very difficult to tell about the about what we're talking about about the buttons or whatnot. So
and the size. I mean, the size can be misleading at that far. I mean, especially if it's by itself.
Yeah, if you're like in a field condition, I would recommend kind of comparing the deer side by side. When it's a full blown doe, a big cow doe, you could pretty well tell. But to your point, if they're in some brush and say they're 250, 300 yards out, and you don't have the best scope. The other thing that I've found over the years, another thing is like a lot of the deer like to move right there before dark, and depending on the quality of the scope and the quality of the gear you have, if a deer's a little too far, it can look hazy and gray in that scope. And I always tell everybody, do not pull the trigger unless you can identify and know exactly what you're shooting. We ran into that the other night. We were actually out. I was with somebody, and we were doe hunting and saw some does pop out. And here, lo and behold, the gear was good enough. We could tell that two of them were button bucks, and one was a half rack. So it was literally a half rack with two little button bucks trailing with him. So it's just, I think that's an important aspect that people need to appreciate, because, we're sitting here advocating about the need for you to property by property manage your herd as a whole, which is critical. Some of you might not need to really shoot any does. Some of you might need to shoot a lot of does. It's just going to be a case by case scenario.
Absolutely.
I can assure you, if you have a property that you manage for agriculture or for, it doesn't really matter, for an income of any kind, having a good managed herd obviously is going to be critical for you, because otherwise they're going to eat your bottom line. You might be places in the state where, and this is even across the country, where it might be big forest. The herds might not be nearly the sizes, or they're a lesser amount. Well, they're a lesser amount naturally because there's not nearly the food, there's not nearly the cover, the habitat isn't conducive for them to multiply in such, I would say, huge quantities.
Right.
Areas where you're far enough north that they have heavy snows, typically the herds will be smaller. Why? Because, again, lack of food, a lot of the deer will die if the conditions do not warrant.
Predators can get to them easier.
Predators. So there's a lot of factors, but I think it's critical. The doe management stuff, you need to do it property by property. To your point, imagine if you were overzealous on that property and they killed too many does. Maybe that buck doesn't come trailing a doe into where you were hunting. So, it's a balance. It's really a balance.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe that. It's a big time balance. You have to really evaluate your property. Does can be a huge attractant when it comes to bucks, especially in the rut. The other times of the year, I would say not so much. The other thing I think it's critical to acknowledge is,
and it's been a weird year for the rut too. I don't know if you've noticed that, which I'm sure you have. The rut's just been weird this year. I mean, I was shocked to see the deer in such full-blown rut out there, and they said they've seen that this whole week of rifle season out there. The deer are still rutting so hard with big mature bucks, still chasing the way they are.
I think
the weather, I don't know if that played into it or what, but I mean, the rut has been really strange.
Well, I've heard stories about does that have come in like multiple cycles to where maybe they didn't get bred the first time.
Right, and they'll come back in.
And it'll come back in. So I've heard stories of that. I don't necessarily know the physical science behind that, but I know from experience that I've seen bucks chasing does in rifle season. Yeah. So it's absolutely a possibility. I'm not advocating or insinuating it's peak time. Peak time is typically early November is usually that. Obviously, we're 5 weeks after the fact, but it just goes to show you, Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature is going to do. They're not stuck on it has to be this week.
I was happy to see it. I'll put it that way. When he came in with his nose curled up and he was after his does, I was quite happy, but I was shocked to see him in full-blown rut that way, and he stunk like a billy goat. So, I mean, that was a good thing. Yeah.
Well, another thing is, I certainly think it deserves deeper conversation, and that's about baiting.
There's no guarantee with that, too. That's something, I mean, a lot of people get upset about baiting that have never hunted over bait. There was 5 from our area that was out there with me. I was the only one to be fortunate enough, lucky enough to get a trophy buck, and this was my 3rd time out there. So it took me 3 times to go out there and be fortunate enough to get an animal like this. There's no guarantee. This wasn't a caged hunt. This was free range. They bait their stands. They run cameras hard. They try to get you on the best opportunity you can. This was the first time I was ever fortunate enough to get one. And there was 10 people in camp. I was the only one that got one second part of the week. Now, first part of the week, they killed a couple more. And they still had other ones running on camera, but no one else had the opportunity. Now, weather started being persnickety with us. It got really warm, the last 2 days. I mean, it was up 60 on
I find the
Sunday,
conversation of baiting to be very intriguing because, in my view, from listening to people, it's more of a personal choice as opposed to what I think is... how do I want to say this? Conveyed. You hear a lot in Pennsylvania. People like they'll talk about CWD or whatnot, congregation of deer. Well, I don't have any clue what that rationally has anything to do with, because if you're not in the act of hunting, you can bait. You could put, and I can tell you for a fact, there are people that do that. My aunt lives in a suburban house, and literally there will be like 10 deer come up on her back porch, and she can hand them she throws food out like crackers and bread and stuff. And these deer just
they're like pets.
They basically almost become like pets. But the point is that she's doing that. You don't see any health issues. And I'm not saying that they can't arise. I'm not alleging that. But the point being, if it's such a health and safety issue, then we basically need to destroy basically the Game Commission almost is insinuating that, nobody should be allowed to. You're basically destroying the idea that you could ever have like a bird feeder, or that anybody could have landscaping around their houses, because guess what? Those deer in the wintertime come down and they're eating all in the same spot.
Well, we're allowed to bait till a month before also. A month before the season.
And that's the other. Well, yeah. Well, so as long as you're not hunting, as long as you haven't hunted there within 30 days of when the bait was there, you're legally allowed to hunt there. So my point is, hypothetically, somebody could have bait there as of November 30th and decide that they want to hunt that spot in Flintlock. Those deer would be in there like right now, even if they go back to check it. But so realistically, if you leave your 30-day window that you're supposed to, that has nothing to do with CWD or EHD or whatever. Like, and when we talk about disease, that's a whole other conversation. Like this summer, there were so many dead deer in southwestern Pennsylvania from EHD, which I don't know all the specifics on that, but I can tell you the last time I saw a mortality rate of that magnitude was roughly 12, 15 years ago. We had another drought.
Right.
And it was a similar scenario. And you never really hear like full I don't want to say it. You never really hear like a full scientific analysis as to why it happens. But the thing about it that I don't understand is, to me, I think of baiting from a completely different lens, and I hear a lot of bureaucrats or even people within the different game agencies, because it's okay for me to go plant an apple tree, to buy an apple tree, and then when it produces, hunt there. But I can't go to the store and buy a bag of apples and dump them on the ground. I can take a Jagger patch and brush hog it down, till the ground, and plant alfalfa and clover and hunt over it, and that's acceptable.
Right.
I just cannot rationally in my head. At the end of the day, if you're changing the landscape, you're changing the landscape. It's no different than people using the. I'll give you another one. You talk about congregation areas. These scrape sites, and the ropes and the whatnot. You get a lot of deer. A lot of bucks will go in and rub the same. Now it's not necessarily does, but you'll get a lot of bucks that'll rub the same areas. That'll go to the bathroom in the same spot, basically like a dog trying to mark their territory.
Right.
So I do not. And furthermore, let's really go down the scientific rabbit hole here. Say a deer has CWD or EHD or whatever. What do you think happens in a rut? They're out there bebopping around, all touching each other. Like, how do you think they're reproducing? Like, how does anybody scientifically think these deer are reproducing? They're all going to. A deer is going to touch another deer. That's just what's going to happen. And so, for me, I certainly think that the baiting conversation needs to be had. I think that it should be at a minimum, people that have. At a very, very minimum, people that have crop damage or people that have the DMAP tags, people that are legitimately trying to manage their herds, if that's a good way to pull in some does or whatnot, I don't have a problem with that at all. Furthermore, I actually don't have a problem with it at all collectively because at the end of the day, everybody's still enjoying the outdoors. People are still going out. They're doing their thing. And here's the other thing. Who in the heck doesn't believe that it's not happening today? Like, it might not be widespread, but what is there? You go to any of these hunting stores, Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's.
They're all selling corn.
What the heck you think they got? Walmart. There's feeders, there's corn blocks, there's molasses blocks. Like, who in their right mind, do you think that people from Ohio and West Virginia are going to drive to Pennsylvania to buy that stuff? Like, so... Come on, like there needs to be a rational reality of what's actually happening. It's almost like baiting reminds me of during like the early 1900s, whenever bootleggers were like doing with liquor. Like it's kind of like it happens, and you know people don't talk about it enough, Todd. But here's another thing. Like I know out in Ohio they do this a lot. A lot of those. Outfitters will actually have like corn silos somewhere around there. I know the one I was at had it. He would buy corn and stockpile it in a silo, and then from there he would take it and use it throughout the season at his feed sites for the deer.
Well, it's, like when I was at, they'd lease property off of a grain farmer, so they just buy it right off that grain farmer. But I mean, they're buying trailer loads off of it, for several thousand acres they're leasing, so they're going through it a lot. But yeah, silo would be another way to do it, and I see a lot of that out there. And I mean, it's helping the farmer, it's helping the economy, and it's definitely not hurting the deer. I mean, their deer are still bigger in Ohio than what they are in PA. So I mean, I can't see why a sportsman would be against it here. Without really thinking about it and looking into it more. And like I said, it's not guaranteeing you an animal by any means. I don't see where it's taking the fair chase away.
I think Pennsylvania's biggest sportsman hiccup is the willingness to change. I think that is like the one thing I've learned. The willingness to change is sometimes
it's a hard thing to get over.
It's a hard thing for people, and
and old school values are great. I'm not saying they're not. I mean, family traditions or traditions with your friends, I mean, they're great. But looking at new ways sometimes are not a bad thing to incorporate into new traditions. Well, just like the AR platforms. I don't see where that hurts much either. And I still love my bolt action rifle. Don't get me wrong. My favorite gun is my 700 Remington. But using that AR, that's a comfortable gun also. It'd be nice to have that versatility. What about a senior or a junior hunter too? I mean, that's a nice light gun that,
that's another one of those scenarios that I don't really understand. I mean,
disabled hunter.
Even.
I don't know.
The thing about that is I don't understand. It's not like anybody's advocating to have a 15-round magazine. I mean, clearly the Game Commission can very easily do, three. You're allowed one in the chamber and three in your.
That's what they do out there. It's 3 rounds total, 2 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber.
And the thing that I don't understand is what is the issue with having an AR, and it doesn't. Like what is the fear? It's like, well,
it's change.
Yeah, it is change, and
because
it's like
you can use a semi-loading shotgun here with slugs in it. The way I read the book, and I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. I actually want to call the Game Commission, but the way I read it, you can use a semi-loading shotgun here. So,
what would be the issue with only a three cartridge rifle?
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
And I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. I mean, the way I read it, you can do that.
And here's the other thing. I'm not advocating the fact that it's gonna help shoot more deer. Could it hypothetically help shoot more deer? The argument could be made. But that being said, our deer herd here in Pennsylvania is proven to be out of control. So if baiting, and even now that we're having the conversation, a semi-automatic rifle could help. But you're not doing anything that other states are not already doing.
That surround us. West Virginia, Ohio, they both allow those.
So I do not understand the concept of habitat management, deer management, and we're basically living in a stone age.
Yes.
And we have to be willing to adapt and change. And here's the thing: you're not being the forefront of change. There's other states that have implemented these rules, regulations, and they work. There's nobody out shooting people or shooting things or killing. Look, somebody breaks the law. That's why we have a justice system. Somebody goes out and shoots 20 deer and they only have tags for 2. Well, guess what? That's a poacher and they need to be held accountable. That's what that's for. You don't punish the rest of the general public from utilizing whether that's firearms or, for that matter, even implementing. To me, to be allowed to bait would infuse, I would assume, millions of dollars into the system, because now
quite a bit.
Because if you actually go to the stores and look at where those baits come from, there are none that I've ever found like at a big box store that were from Pennsylvania.
Right.
It's Missouri, Nebraska, Kansas. It's places out there because they allow it.
Right.
It's normal process procedure. Nobody cares. It's not a big deal. To your point, Ohio, you got the guy selling his grain or his corn to the actual outfitter. That really doesn't happen here in Pennsylvania. That could be an agricultural benefit that could stimulate people's, economies. I'm not saying it's going to make anybody rich, but
it's another outlet.
The government getting the heck out of the way and letting people do things. Now, can there be another conversation about, well, how much bait are you allowed to have? Like, I know, I want to say it's New Jersey. Don't quote me on that. But I want to say New Jersey, you're allowed to have a feeder, but you're not allowed to have it at any point in time more than 50 pounds on the ground. So it's basically a rotary feeder.
Right.
So, you could put limitations on what, because obviously I'm sure in some states you could probably back up a whole freaking dump truck of corn and dump it down. And, clearly.
And I'm sure people do that at places. I mean, I think it's kind of crazy, but, I'm sure there's people that do that for ease, and ones that are out of state maybe or whatever, that can't get there every day.
But I certainly think it's something Pennsylvania needs to. The Game Commission should be allowed to manage that. That should not be something that is right out of the gate written into the code as allowed. The Game Commission should have the discretion, in my opinion. And like I said earlier, if it's simply to be utilized for crop damage, DMAP, whatever, as a utilized tool, what's the big deal? Like, holy heck. And then see how that goes, and kind of take baby steps. It's like Sunday hunting. Like, we're the only state with 3 freaking days. 3 days. And it's like,
it was so nice to be able to be out in Ohio. Now, I'd already harvested my buck in one doe out there, but I was able to buy another management doe tag out there, and I was already out there, and I still had a buddy that was trying to harvest a buck, so I purchased another doe tag. I was able to still go out on a Sunday out there and go back out and try to get another doe. So it was just great to have that opportunity to go out on a Sunday out there and not worry about it and be legal and hunt on a Sunday. Without question.
Well, it sounds like that's going to be voted on this upcoming year. So everybody kind of we'll keep following up with that. Todd, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on today.
It's always a pleasure.
I'm going to wrap up by giving a special thanks again to the Mariana Outdoorsman Association and also Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. You can join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com. You can go to 10mileco.org. For 10 Mile Creek Outfitters and Wild Acres Farm to book your guided deer, turkey, upland bird fishing trip. Certainly happy to have you. Give us a call, 724-579-0924. I'm Jason White. This has been The Great Outdoors. Good luck hunting this week, folks, and we'll see you next week.